Hi, welcome to the newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Deep Mahmood, with my normal co-host Hunter. And today we're going to do a quick episode. We're going to talk some NFL Combine and our preview of what the Ravens and Steelers could do, and then we're going to talk some NHL as well. So let's start with the NFL. So the NFL Combine, we saw some main like Sunny Styles, big size, like high projection. I get it. The combine is the underwear Olympics, but what are your thoughts on the combine so far?
Yeah, like it's typical standard stuff. I haven't really watched a lot of the combine. I'm mainly just seeing a lot of the measurements, the 40-yard dashes, who's meeting with who. Like that I feel like indeed is the most important information for me. Like, yeah, it's cool, the vertical jump, the 40-yard dash, the drills, but I like to see, what teams are meeting with which players. Like that's because that's like the first, oh, okay, this team is interested in this player before you have pro days coming up this month, and then you have pre-draft visits, and then you obviously have the draft coming up here in Pittsburgh in a little less than 2 months. But this is the first opportunity where you really see, which teams have interest in which players. And, I've been really tracking that a lot this week for the Steelers. It's been very wide receiver heavy at the combine. 13 of 45 formals based on a couple of days ago were wide receivers, including Makai Lemon, Carnell Tate, Casey Concepcion, and Denzel Boston. I think the Steelers, they pick a bit later in the draft, of course, because they made the playoffs. I think to get someone like Carnell Tate or Makai Lemon, you're going to have to trade up to get one of those two. I personally think those are the two best receivers in this class. If you want to get one of them, you have to trade up. But if you don't want to do that, I think someone like Casey Concepcion makes a lot of sense considering his college career at Texas A&M. Denzel Boston has also been really good throughout his career. I would not be surprised at all if the Steelers go wide receiver in the first round, considering how much interest they have in the position, and also because they really need another wide receiver to really complement DK Metcalf. So that's like the first main thing I've been paying attention to this week.
Yeah, so I think look, one of the things I like about the combine is it's really the first time you hear about the overall depth, the quality. So like for example, like there's a receiver from Cincinnati, Caldwell, the guy who's like 6'5", he ran a sub 4.340. I had no idea who he was until the combine. So that's kind of why I like hearing some of the measurements, because you hear a lot about these guys, like the Ohio State safety, Styles Jr. He's going to be, I think he's projected to be a day 3 pick, and I know he ran a grade 40. You hear a lot about there's like a Miami offensive tackle who's like 6'9", 350, and he ran like a 5'3", 640. That's why I kind of like the combine, because when you get to the draft, you're going to hear about these first round names, all like Makai Lemon. You're going to hear about all these guys like Arizona State, Tyson from Arizona State. Once you get to the third or fourth round, I think there's a correlation between the amount of people that follow the combine, follow the people that some of these guys here in the combine, and how many people are familiar with the names in day 2, day 3. I think that's where you're going to see the benefits of it. A few things. I mean, Carnell Tate. I want to say it was Carnell Tate. He ran like a 4.5 or 4.640. He might drop a little bit for it. I mean, Kyle Hamilton dropped from a top 5 pick to number 14 because of a bad comp of 40. So you're going to see some interesting ones. Caldwell was one of the guys I was looking at because of the 40 time. But the problem with him is, it sounds like from his scouting report, he's very raw in his route tree. So he's like big size, good speed, but you gotta make him. If either Cincinnati tried to use him as a yards after catch guy when he should be a straight line Torrey Smith type receiver, but I think there's a limited route tree with him. I mean, there's a few fun ones. There's the Iowa offensive lineman Gunther, that like the guy with the mullet. That he seems like a really fun prospect. Obviously, like Mendoza he didn't run the 40. He's just going to the quarterback class. There's nothing really to stand. There's no standout option there.
Outside of Mendoza, there's just not much. in this class, sadly.
Yeah. What was it? Oh, yeah, I think for the Ravens, one of the big things with the Ravens, I don't know where they're going with the draft, where they're going with the 14th overall pick, because they could go receiver. I know Daniel Jeremiah, like, here's for those who aren't Ravens fans, Daniel Jeremiah, I know he's more associated with the Chargers now, but he used to be a scout for the Ravens, so I would also pay attention to what he's saying about the Ravens, because that's kind of how that's closer to where they're going for. And he is, I think his most recent mock draft has Tyson from Arizona State. I like the option if they do it, because obviously Zay Flowers is good, but 5'9". Bateman's good when he's healthy. You get someone like Tyson, that's a nice blend there. The Oregon tight end, Sadiq, the Ravens are more than likely going to lose Isaiah Likely and potentially Kolar. So watch for the Ravens once again to double dip at tight end. That's another prediction I have in mind. That's an early prediction I have in mind. I mean, I like some of the Penn State guard, Ione. That's someone I could see the Ravens targeting at 14. I would like that. It would depend on what happens, and obviously with Linderbaum and whatever strategy, whatever they do with him there. So it is. I mean, there is interesting. It's still a bit too early to tell. I mean, obviously we can talk a little bit more about some of the other stories. Apparently Kyler Murray. What are your thoughts on this one? I think with the Ravens, that's pretty much all for the Ravens. I'll just say is I like Sadiq. I understand best player available, tight end 14, not the best idea in the world, but you are going to lose Isaiah Likely, and you are more likely going to lose Charlie Kolar as well. If Sadiq is your top option, go ahead. I think that's your one guy. I think I would like him. Ione, the guard. I think you, as a Steelers fan, you can notice the Ravens guard play was absolutely dog. You know what?
Yes.
Last year, so that would help. There's some pass rushers. Ruben Bain apparently has like less than 31 inch arms, like 30 inches and 7/8 of an inch, and no guy has been drafted. But I mean, his production last year was really good for Miami. I mean, I like Cash Howell for Texas A&M. These are just some of the early ways I'm looking at. I probably would lean towards guard, Sadiq, guard, or pass rusher. That's kind of where I'm kind of leaning towards with the Ravens, the best player available out of that group. There was, in terms of other stories around the NFL, Kyler Murray is apparently either going to be likely to be released. Where do you think are some spots for him?
That one is interesting. I mean, do teams see him as a starter or as a backup? I think that's really going to be, the biggest thing. It's kind of similar to the situation with Tua a bit where, it looks like he's probably going to get released because I don't think anyone is going to trade for him in his massive contract. I think they're just going to cut him there. And I think Tua's more of a backup for, a decent amount of teams, in my opinion. Maybe they can, get his game back up a bit, and then maybe he can be a starter down the line. Murray, I'm not too sure because how many teams need true starting quarterbacks this offseason? I know
Minnesota, if they don't believe
Minnesota, if they want to get a backup, maybe maybe that could make sense. But I'm not fully sure. But Minnesota, I would agree with you. The Steelers they're just banking on Rodgers coming back. Miami is obviously going to release Tua. How many other ones actually need a starting quarterback this summer?
I mean, if we're counting, like let's assume that the 99.9% scenario, Raiders are going to get Mendoza, so we can take them out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, if the Cardinals move on from Kyler Murray, they're going to be a spot that need a quarterback, but in that situation, obviously, he wouldn't go there.
Right.
I mean, Lions seem to be in pretty good. Packers seem to be solid. I mean, here's the other thing. Apparently, Malik Willis, he might be seeking 30 to 35 million a year. Like,
I did see that.
Yeah, so I mean, imagine if the Steelers
Jets, maybe the Jets if they move off Justin Fields potentially. We'll see.
Yeah, imagine if the Steelers finally get Malik Willis.
Yeah, I think that really, to me, that really depends on if Rodgers comes back. If he retires, then I could see them being in the market for Malik Willis. But I think they're going to wait until Rodgers decides. It sounds like the reporting is it's going to be done before free agency starts officially. They're not going to have to wait until June like they did last year. So we should be finding out pretty quickly. Personally, I would not bring Rodgers back. That's just my opinion. I would look for other options. But again, it feels like this summer, compared to, last summer, there's not as many, quarterback needy teams that need like a true starter. It's really only, I feel like, a select few this time, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, none of the NL East, none of the NFC East teams, the Saints seem to be content.
Oh, maybe does Cleveland take a chance on Kyler Murray?
I mean, let's see. So you have Watson still under contract if they're going to use him. Sanders.
Yep.
Dylan Gabriel.
And then it would be Kyler Murray. Yeah.
Isn't it? And then isn't what's his name? Pickett? No, isn't he still on the Brown?
No, he got traded.
Okay. Yeah. So, and there's probably another quarterback we're missing for Cleveland. So, yeah, how many quarterbacks do you need? If you have two, you have none. If you have three, you're and -1. If you have four, you have -2. Like,
right.
Todd Monken has a huge challenge on his hands.
I agree
in that situation. I mean, yeah, like I'm trying to think.
It also doesn't help that the quarterback, class in free agency this year is so much more worse compared to last year. Like, you had a lot of, teams that needed a starting quarterback. Pittsburgh, obviously, Seattle really needed one. The Jets really needed one. I'm just throwing a few out there. But you saw a lot of these quarterbacks, get bigger deals, especially someone like Sam Darnold last offseason. So, but this offseason, not only is the quarterback free agency class bad, there's also just not many teams that fully need a true starter. Like we talked about the Raiders, they're drafting their future starter in the draft. It's going to be Fernando Mendoza. But, these other teams, Miami, Arizona, like, yeah, they'll need new quarterbacks, I think, because they're going to make their decisions on both Murray and Tua. But, they're going to have to go out and find other avenues. Do they draft someone? I don't know. Ty Simpson potentially later on in the draft.
Falcons.
I mean, they could potentially use a backup to Michael Penix because Kirk Cousins, it sounds like, is going to be released. And it also sounds like he wants to play this year. I just don't really know where there's a good fit for him. Maybe he could be a backup to someone throughout this season. I keep coming back to maybe this is a, weird comp, but, do the Rams take a shot on him and have him be the backup to Stafford throughout the year? That at least is fascinating to me. But, I just think there's not as many teams that need a full-on starter this year. I feel like a lot more teams are more set this year compared to last year, in my opinion.
Does Kirk Cousins, if he gets cut, and there's no teams that are looking at him for a starter, right, could you see him as I don't know if the cap would work in a situation. Could you see him being the backup for Stafford?
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of move that the Rams would make just because – the McVay tree and just McVay as a coach.
And wasn't McVay with Washington around at least for a year or two?
Believe you're correct. Yes.
With Kirk Cousins.
So yeah, I believe you are correct. Yes. So there is some familiarity there. We've seen the Rams, do this before. So would not be surprised if that happened again. He can learn under McVay, under that system, and maybe get him back to being a bridge starter for another team at some point. So yeah, there's that option. I've seen Derek Carr's name thrown out there, but I don't know how much interest he's going to have league wide if he does make a full.
He was sucking. I mean, granted, there's probably some other situations there, but he was sucking last year. Because the reason I was thinking the Rams, not just because of the connections, but because Stafford might be done in a year or two, hypothetically. Yeah. So do you bring in Kirk Cousins to, at the very least, be a bridge quarterback between Stafford and then your future? So that way you're still in a competitive state without having – it's like if the Rams lose, if Stafford retires, you still have in the right system, a very competent quarterback instead of a rookie quarterback.
Right.
And you can draft the rookie quarterback, even if Kirk Cousins is there for only a couple of years, you could still have that cleaner transition. So I think that's the reason I brought up because the Rams. So we'll get into our last one for today. Like I said, it's a short episode because there isn't much.
Yeah, I was also just going to add before that the Steelers met with a lot of cornerbacks at the Combine, so I think they're going to address that position very early in the draft. They met with Pons from Indiana. That's one of them. Terrell from Clemson. There's a whole bunch more. If you just go down the list, like they met with like all the top corners in the draft. So I would not be surprised if their first two picks were a corner and a wide receiver, and rightfully so, in my opinion. But
before we move on to NHL, Jeremiah Love posted a really good 40 time. Mm-hmm. How unfair would it be if Kansas City drafted him in the first round?
Annoying, because Andy Reid, like, it's going to be nuts if they got him. Like, you see what he does with Xavier Worthy, right, Adit? Like, yeah. I feel like it's going to be something like that with Jeremiah Love. Like, it's going to be nuts. I'm expecting the Chiefs to come back very pissed off next season. I think they're going to have another really good year.
And they have a few other receivers. There was Brennan from Mississippi State who ran a sub 4.340. He's like 5'8". Yeah, I could see Andy Reid doing a lot with him. Like if you get him in the second round and you pair him, if you put him with Kansas City, but yeah, no, like there's probably a few guys that we're not looking at that we're probably going to be nearing the draft and be like, please don't go to Kansas City. Like whatever you do, please don't go there, because at that point it's just unfair. So we'll go to the last topic of today. It's been a slow month, which is but yeah, like the NHL, like what's like the, just focusing on NHL. That's we're only talking about that part right now. Like what is it looking like?
Yeah, so now that we're back from the Olympics and obviously the U.S. won gold and all that, the season resumed this past week. The trade deadline is coming up this Friday. I expect it to really pick up action-wise the early portion of this week. I think teams, you haven't seen a lot of action this weekend because I think some teams that are kind of in the middle are still deciding what they really want to do. I think teams are just kind of taking their time. They don't want to make panic decisions. So, you're going to see some good action by the end of this week, but I think it might take a little bit longer to get there just because teams are just taking their time more. The top three teams in the Central Division and the Western Conference are three of the best teams in the league, with Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota. They're all just taking turns beating the crap out of each other. We've known for months now that Dallas and Minnesota are going to play in the first round, and the winner of that is probably going to get Colorado. So I am really excited about that. The Pacific Division is very weird this year. Vegas leads it, but I don't really think they're that good. Edmonton is right behind them, but their goaltending is very bad. And then you have Anaheim, who's also right up there in the top three. They've been really fun to watch throughout the year. I think they're going to get in and snap their long playoff route, which is great. They have a lot of really fun young pieces. Beckett Seneca, Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, Lucas Dostal. I can keep going down the list. The wild card race there is fun. You got Seattle down there, LA, Utah. Of course, hopefully Utah is going to get in. I had them as a sleeper team to make the playoffs this year. They've been a lot of fun to watch. Going to the East, Tampa Bay, they're going to get in. Carolina's going to get in. But you also have a lot more, you have a couple more at least teams that are potentially going to snap really long droughts. The Sabres, for example, they haven't made the playoffs since you and I were teenagers. It's been basically since 2010 since they got in the playoffs. This is a fan base that's been starving for, playoff success, or just honestly getting to the playoffs. And I think they're finally going to get it this year. This is one of the best NHL markets in the United States. They've been a lot of fun to watch. Montreal has been really good this year. I expect them to get in. Boston has exceeded all expectations. I think they're going to get in as well. Outside of Carolina and the Metro, the Penguins, as the team that I cover, they have been really exceeding all expectations this year. And if they just tread water for the next 2-3 weeks until Crosby returns, I think they potentially have what it takes to also make the playoffs. They've had this nobody believes in us mentality throughout the season, and it's been paying dividends. The Islanders are also having a very special season, But the Capitals are still in that race. Columbus is still in that race. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how these races shake out in the final month and a half of the season. But we're getting closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs, which in my opinion, it's the best playoffs in all of sports. 4 rounds, best of 7 series. There's a reason why the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win in sports, at least in my humble opinion. And we're getting closer to that, though. So, been a really, really fun season so far. Very unexpected season in a lot of regards. But, we're hitting the home stretch here. And every team is playing basically every other day this month because of the condensed schedule with the Olympics. So, it's going to be a race to the finish. I'm really excited.
Yeah, so we'll see. So we'll end the show on that note. We'll discuss afterwards whether until baseball season starts, whether we want to do it weekly or 2 weeks from now. But the next show we'll cover the WBC, which should start this week.
Yeah.
There was a few news like Skubal is apparently going to make only 1 start. But it wasn't enough to really preview the WBC. So we'll see you either a week from now or 2 weeks from now.
Yep, we'll talk to you guys then.